Hi, it's Tommy Jo from Bird Street Studios. I'm in the studio, which is very small. I think I've explained to you guys it's really just my old walk-in closet. Anyways, I've been trying to kind of clean it up and organize and I did that all yesterday, and I'm just so tired of it. I just wanted to create. And I don't know how many people started either scrapbooking or doing mixed media or something years and years ago. But if you did, then you probably have some of these, which is, not this, wait, pads of these papers. It's used for scrapbooking or whatever, design papers. And I'll be honest with you, this gave me a wide variety of paper, and I've used quite a bit of them, but there are some that I can't even imagine what I would use it for. So I decided this morning to try and convert it into something I would use. So this is the paper that I started with. I mean, really, like, why would I even use this? I'm not sure why. But anyways, this is what we turned it into. And this I would definitely use. And because it came out so good, I thought, oh my gosh, I think I will turn on the camera and show you what I did to come up with this. And you could really change it a lot of ways, but I'm really happy with this. So I was going to show you what I started with first. And let me just explain to you what you need to do this. I just used some white gesso, and I used just a plastic palette knife. I used a couple of stencils, 2 of them. Let me see if I have them right here. I moved them out of the way because I had such a mess here. Let's see. So I used these 2 stencils right here, and these were stencils that I got at Amazon, where you get, I don't know, 20 of them for really cheap or 30 of them for really cheap. And then the top layer, as you can see, I stamped, and that I just used this stamp. It's an old, I'm not even sure where I got it. It's so old. I mean, it doesn't have anything on it, so I'm not really sure. But that's what I used to convert this paper into this paper. So I thought I'll just kind of show it's very messy, and I don't usually wear gloves. So I'm going to move that aside, and we're just going to go to work. So what I normally do is shake my gesso. That way I have some in the cap that I can use. And we'll just start putting it on. It's just, I did a thin layer because it does soak into the paper, and I'm going to have to dry it at some point here. But you just spread it all over. I tried to get all the way to the edge. That way I could, you know, use the paper all the way to the edge. So it's usually a little better if you get the edges first, because they're kind of hard to spread over to those, because the gesso wants to just go off onto the mat. So and I'm putting such a thin coat on. We will have to dry it, but it will dry very fast because it's so thin. And this paper that I'm using is not a typical scrapbook paper. It's not heavy. It's probably fairly equal to not a 20-pound bond, but maybe a 24-pound bond copy paper that's printed on. It's a pad of it, so it's not expensive paper. And it's by no means heavy. It's very thin. So chances are, if I use this paper for tags or cards, I'm going to have to back it, which is not a problem because I usually back my cards and stuff anyways for journaling. But this is a way that I can use up, honestly, I think I've had these papers for about 20 years. I mean, I use them, now and then, but I mean, I had pads of them. And what I ended up doing was I went from physical scrapbooking to digital scrapbooking. So I kind of abandoned all my scrapbooking supplies when I went digital. I'm just going to pull it out of my jar now. I hope I'm in camera here. Whoops. It's easier for me to turn the paper. So let's do it that way, and then I can start up here again. Just trying to make sure I've got it on all the edges. And then when we get done covering this with just a thin layer, it was one layer of gesso. That's it. That's all I used. And I just tried to make sure that the real bright colors were muted a little. And I think what I'll do is, as I use different color papers, I'll use different color inks. And really create some different colors. Okay, I think we've got it covered. Let me just do a thin layer. I'm gonna dry this with my heat gun, and then I will come back and we will go on from there. Okay, I'm back with the dried paper, and I dried it on the front, and then I turned it over and dried it on the back as well. So it's fairly dry. And I think a minute ago I told you I took the gesso all the way to the edges because I didn't want to neglect those. So the first thing I'm going to do is take, this is Tea Dye Distress Ink Ranger. And I'm just going to go around the edge of the paper and kind of catch the edges, make sure they are not neglected. And I could use gloves, but it's really hard for me to manipulate anything with gloves on, so I tend not to use them, and I probably should when I'm using inks and that, because it does stain up your hands. Most of the time I don't care, but and this would work with any of the brown, lighter brown distress inks or oxides. I think the darker ones would put such a dark edge on it that it'll be different from what we're going to do. Okay, so all the edges are done, and if you can tell, it's very light in the middle and just darker around the edges. And so the first thing I did was I'm going to try to replicate this one right here. So I'm going to show you exactly what I did to create this. Probably because I'll need to use 2 sheets if I'm using these in a journal as tags or something. I want them to match. So hopefully I'll come close. So I just went all over the stencil with this tea dye. And the design wasn't real important. What was important is that I added some kind of a sepia or brownish color to this to cut down the white, was what was most important. But as you can see, it's really changing this paper a lot. I'm going to just hold it this way. That way I'm pretty sure I'm in camera all the time. It's hard. My camera is actually my old phone mounted right up above here, right there. And half the time I don't know if my head's in there or if my chest is in there or what. So I think when you know, I can set it up to capture a certain area, but then you get crafting and you kind of just forget that you're actually filming and you kind of move all over the place. So hopefully we're getting this. Okay. And what I'm looking at here is I see a couple of really whiter spaces here, maybe here and here. So I'm just going to not try to match the stencil up at all. I'm just going to add, you know, to where it seems the whitest. And add a little more brown in there to darken it up a little bit. Then the more you add, the more white it looks. Okay. Okay, but I think that's about it. So you can see that there's a big difference already. Then I changed, I think I originally took the stencil and tried to do it in brown. Let me show you. And it didn't show up real well, obviously, because the other stencil was so bold. It really didn't change it all that much. And it kept it brown, and I wanted something a little different. So I ended up pulling out, I had the pumice, distressed pumice. I don't have anything darker than that, and it wasn't quite dark enough. It was, so I ended up pulling out the Memento Tuxedo Black using this stencil and added that all over the whole thing. And that's where I stained my hands all up. Because this is permanent ink, where the distress ink you can wash off because it's water soluble. But look at how it changed. And I'm going to just come up here and get the edges a little bit so that they blend in. There we go. Make sure I'm off the edge here so I get the stencil over there. And wow, this really made a big difference, and I fell in love with it once I added this darker color to it. Look at that. Look at the difference. Quite a big difference. But I could still see a lot of that design through, and I like seeing some of the design through. It makes it busy. But wow, remember how it was in the beginning. It was so bright reds and burgundies. So I'm really liking this muted colors. I think these are going to make great like tags or cards for my journals, which is what I will use this paper for. I'm getting ready. I have one journal, I guess it's a botanical type journal. I'm getting ready to sew it together, and then I will do a flip through. But oh my gosh, look at that. Let's see, how close are we? Oh wow, they match pretty good. Maybe I'm going to do right over here. There's a couple of spaces I think look a little light, and I'm going to darken those up a little bit. And this edge too seems a little light. Oh, that looks really good, I think. I like it. Okay, so that was with the Memento ink and these two stencils here. These come, I got them at Amazon. This was 40 pieces. And this one I took out of the package because it wasn't as good a packaging. It didn't have a good seal. But I think this might have been 20 or 30 pieces. And like they were like $8.99 or $9.99. But look at all the different, I mean, there's all different designs in there. So we're done stenciling. And then I thought, well, it's pretty, but let's mess it up just a little bit more. So I took this. Like I said, I'm not sure where I got it from. And I just inked it up, the whole thing. And this is where you really get your hands dirty. And I think I'll kind of go a little straight there. And you know that when you stamp anything, you need to let the ink sit on the paper for a little bit. Don't just stamp and pull it off because it needs to soak in. And I've got gesso and other ink on here, so. Ooh, looks good. And then I just took it and I did another butterfly like down here, but maybe I'll turn it sideways. Because we don't really know how we're going to use this paper yet. Oh, very nice. And then I just took this corner of it right here and started stamping there. I didn't want the butterfly again on it, so I just stamped the text. I wonder if I can just do this bottom text. I don't know. Let's see. A couple lines on the bottom. Probably get the bottom of the butterfly, but oh well. Oh, not bad. I think I'm going to do this corner text though, and we'll do one down here as well. Now what we want to do is pull that other one in and see if we match. Clean up my mess. Yeah, look at your hands. Yeah. You get gesso and ink. And like I said, the Distress ink is water soluble, so that would come right off, but I used that Memento and that's permanent. So that kind of stains. I'm not real worried because I have to work tomorrow. So hopefully my shower will get a lot of this off. I'll wash my hands in the meantime. But anyways, let's get the other paper in here and we'll see. So here's the one we just did right here. And here's the one I did before. So they match up pretty good. So that's a way you can take those ugly, ugly papers. Let me see. Some of these are not all that ugly. But it's a whole pad. Look at it. And I've used quite a bit of it. But it's where you can take some of these really bright papers and tone them down. Like, well, here's the green. Was the same as this one, the design. And I probably would tone that down as well. and I don't know, maybe the chevron. But I think there were some other bright ones. Like these I would probably use in like a journal for a child. Like, so I wouldn't necessarily change the bright ones, you know, circus, anything like that. But some of them are pretty wild. And so anyways, if there were papers that you want to change, like these, I can't imagine using this. So I would change this as well. But if there are papers that you want to change, what a wonderful way to change them, huh? Look how nice these came out. I just love them. Now I'm going to go ahead and shut the camera off, and I'm going to dry this ink so I don't end up with more on my hands. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope this gave you a good idea and that you try it. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.